This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. We begin this busy Tuesday in the Middle East, where Israel is urging its citizens around the world to be pro-vigilant as pro-Palestinian groups are calling for a global day of rage. This comes as Israel continues to ramp up the war in Gaza. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl is on the story. She's reporting from Jerusalem.
Pro-Palestinian groups are calling for this day of rage today to protest the ongoing war in Gaza. Israeli officials warn that Jewish travelers around the world could be targeted and violently attacked, as they have been in recent months. They're advising travelers not to display Jewish symbols or signs and to stay away from protest areas. Here in the Middle East, in Gaza, Israel Defense Forces are launching what could be the final push against Hamas strongholds. Flares visible from Israel light up the night sky as the IDF prepares to strike enemy targets. The terrorists have been pushed into more isolated and shrinking enclaves. They're often hiding in the tent cities of Gaza's displaced civilians, putting those civilians at more risk than ever as the IDF goes after the terrorists.
Over the past 72 hours, Israel's Air Force has struck 200 terror targets across Gaza. Amongst those are launch and sniper posts, weapons depots, and terror compounds. Ground forces dismantled terror infrastructure in Rafah, Tel al-Sultan, and Shabora, uncovering weapons caches and eliminating several terrorists.
Even as Hamas announces its plans to recruit 30,000 new fighters, it's having trouble paying those already in the ranks. Hamas was making much of its money by stealing and then selling humanitarian aid, but that cash flow has been drying up since the IDF cut off aid deliveries several weeks ago. Some in Israel advocate ending the war to get the remaining hostages back. But Israel's prime minister says while the return of the hostages is a top priority and negotiations are still underway, Hamas must be crushed to prevent more hostages from being taken in the future.
If we do not complete the destruction of Hamas military and governmental capabilities, the next October 7 and the next kidnappings are only a matter of time. Hamas says they will do it, they intend to do it, and they're working to do it.
Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Continuing our coverage now, we are joined by our Middle East Bureau Chief, Chris Mitchell. So, Chris, let's begin with this. What is the latest on the hostage talks?
Well, Israel has proposed, Ephraim, but that's been rejected by Hamas. Their proposal was for a 45-day ceasefire, along with the release of 10 hostages, knowing that there are 59 hostages remaining. 24 of those apparently are still alive. But Hamas's conditions are that it insists that there be a permanent ceasefire, which basically means an end of the war. They want a complete Israeli withdrawal from all of Gaza. But as we saw in Julie's report, Israel is increasing its military campaign on Hamas, putting more pressure on Hamas to achieve the two goals of the war. First of all, that all the hostages would be released and that Hamas would be dismantled and no longer a threat to Israel.
What are some of the families of the fallen saying?
Well, many of the fallen, that almost 1,000 soldiers have fallen since the beginning of the war. One of those associations is called the Ha-Gavora Forum, and they're a forum for the families of the fallen heroes. They signed a letter by more than 1,000 families to the Prime Minister Netanyahu, and what they're asking is that do not stop the war prematurely, as some other groups have been advocating. They don't want the sacrifice of their fallen sons and daughters to be in vain. They don't advocate releasing Palestinian prisoners, which they say undermines national security and puts more Israelis at risk, because many of those Palestinian prisoners historically have been gone to terror. A complete return of all the hostages and a total elimination of Hamas as a military threat. And so Gaza, as we've said before, would no longer pose a threat to Israel.
Let's turn now to the talks between Iran and the United States. What's the status?
Well, the next meeting is scheduled to be this Saturday in Oman once again. The first one was in Oman, the second one in Rome. Right now, they're going to what called technical talks that would be, setting limits on uranium enrichment, sanctions relief, and monitoring protocol. But Ephraim, here, the concern in Israel is that this really sounds a lot like the negotiations back in 2015 when President Obama negotiated what's called the JCPOA. What Israel wants is what they call the Libyan model. That would be, as what happened in Libya back in 2003 and 4, the destruction of the total nuclear infrastructure. As Netanyahu said in a speech last Friday, he said there's not 1 millimeter change in their goals. They want a complete destruction of that nuclear sites, either voluntarily or by military action. And as I said, the third meeting will be back in Oman this Saturday, but Israel will be watching very closely to see how those talks progress.
Indeed, we all will be watching. What's ahead today on Jerusalem Dateline?
Well, we have updates on some of the latest things that are happening here in the war in Gaza and in the Middle East. We also have an excerpt from Ambassador Huckabee, Mike Huckabee, the new U.S. ambassador to Israel, at yesterday's presentation of his diplomatic credentials at the president's residence. It was a moving speech. We'll have an excerpt from that. We have analysis with Yaakov Lepin. He's a military expert about the Iran talks. Also, we'll be talking to Albert Vexler about the Jerusalem prayer breakfast coming up next month. And we have an excerpt from the sunrise service at the Garden Tomb. That was something CBN has broadcast online all over the world.
Beautiful. Lots to look forward to. Thank you so much. Our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell joining us from Jerusalem. We appreciate your insights and look forward to hearing from you in the days ahead this week. Back here at home today, the Supreme Court will hear a widely watched Maryland L.G.B.T.Q. plus curriculum case. At issue, parents' ability to allow their children to opt out of classes with books involving gender identity and sexuality. As CBN's Wendy Griffith reports, the High Court's ruling could have far-reaching effects, potentially shaping how this type of content is taught in our public school systems.
Parents in Montgomery County, Maryland want to pull their children out of elementary school classes that use books that depict LGBTQ stories and themes, saying it violates their religious faith. But the county school system refused to accommodate them, and lower courts agreed. So the parents, including Christians, Jews, and Muslims, took their case to court. The outcome is now in the hands of the Supreme Court, who in recent years has repeatedly sided with claims of religious discrimination.
All we wanted is the accommodation, not necessarily to ban the books or remove the books as it's been reported.
The controversy started in 2022 after the school board approved several books for pre-K and kindergartners. The list included My Rainbow, about a Black transgender girl whose mother creates a special wig to match her identity. Uncle Bobby's Wedding, where a young girl's uncle marries another man.
F for feathers, for flags, and for fun.
And Pride Puppy, an alphabet book following a family and their dog at a pride parade.
It's really important for us to center LGBTQ plus voices.
In court papers, the school district compares the materials to classic fairy tales, arguing the storybooks are no more sex education than stories like Cinderella and Snow White. And although the material is labeled as language arts, some parents say the content is very sexual and too much for young children.
I'm here to tell them my 7-year-old daughter, she's not ready for this.
In terms of what they have faced in Montgomery County and what potentially the Supreme Court could hold, it will implicate at what point may schools infringe upon the rights of parents, both in terms of teaching the children their own faith and also in directing in the upbringing of their children.
Montgomery County did stop using Pride Puppy and My Rainbow, but the other controversial books remain. The school claimed the opt-outs created too many problems, but supporters say it shouldn't be difficult to let parents pull kids from those classes. School districts nationwide are closely watching this case, which could set a precedent for similar disputes involving parental rights in the future. Wendy Griffith, CBN News.
Coming up, a place once known as the murder capital of the world, a revolution is underway. See how soccer, faith, and hope are transforming lives and redeeming neighborhoods. You're watching CBN NewsWatch. Medellin, Colombia was once known as the murder capital of the world. Today, it is undergoing a revolution sparked by faith and soccer. Brody Carter brings us the story of how one man's vision is transforming an entire city.
High in the Andes Mountains lies Medellin, once known as the world's murder capital.
The psychologists would call Medellin the culture of death, and that's how it become, just so much death, so much killing.
Given the cartel's prevailing influence, children learned to kill before they could read. But even in this environment of violence, a different kind of revolution began taking root, one fueled by soccer, faith, and hope. American missionary Mark Wittig arrived in 1985 when bullet-riddled bodies filled the streets and young boys were recruited as soldiers. Wittig, though, looked beyond the death and saw their love for soccer. That became his way in.
When I turned 10 years old, I was already cleaning the guns from my dad.
Trained to kill as a child, Alex Saldariega learned the drug trade from his father, a cartel leader.
One day, I went home after practice and my dad was waiting for me at the door with a list of people that we needed to kill that night.
For others, like Wilson Rogers, joining the cartel simply meant survival.
We were involved with these trucks and everything because we knew at that time that we needed money to survive.
When I was 11, I found out that my mom was working as a prostitute to provide for us. I left school and started selling drugs to get my mom out of that life.
We had guys taking, mini Uzi submachine guns to games with them. I went to jail for them. I went and got them out of police stations, they had been captured, and then had them in my house as well.
Even faced with this daily dose of violent reality, one thing remained more popular here than drugs, power, and money. Football.
Anybody will either go see a soccer game or play soccer. So it's just a non-threatening context.
A simple soccer game led by Mark sparked a movement.
A couple of weeks later, I began to organize a tournament for all these guys in the neighborhood. And he said, oh, this is a gringo that's a little different.
It wasn't just soccer. It was a connection to something greater.
The first practice, I went there and I saw a coach with a Bible in his hand.
I'll meet him out there on the soccer field. They're there. And, as the saying goes, they come for soccer and we sort of go for their souls.
That approach led to this, the opening ceremony for the Social and Sport Corporation of Colombia, simply called Costa Col. It's become a sign of hope and new beginnings for the country, where former killers now coach and drug dealers become disciples. For Mark, the goal has been about transforming hearts. By grounding these young men in faith, he could raise up players to become leaders, trading violence for the gospel. This neighborhood is called Granizal. It's where Alex grew up, and like many neighborhoods throughout Medellin, it's run by a gang leader. Nothing happens here without their permission. And although they fuel crime, violence, and drugs, they've given Costa Col the green light to come in, serve the community, build soccer fields, and it's changing the country. Manantiales, a large community for Colombia's displaced, houses thousands who escaped the war between paramilitaries and guerrillas. They live here without electricity or running water, unless it's provided by the local gang for a price. In this neighborhood, an unlikely partnership gives children something rare, a place to play. Costa Col worked with local gang leaders to build this field under one condition, that kids can hear the gospel.
Our coaches have really earned a good reputation in the neighborhoods. Even the gangs like them. Even the gang leaders want their kids to train with our teams.
Today, it's a sanctuary for thousands of children, a community where they can find mentors, guidance, and hope away from the darkness that still lingers over the city.
We learn from Jesus, his knowledge and all that is perfect.
Sports help teach us the values of Jesus, help us to distract ourselves from school, and help us to see ourselves.
Consisting of 3 soccer fields, a complex, and a brownie business that pays for half of its operations, Costa Col reaches 45,000 lives and counting. Semi-professional teams at American universities are also involved, developing talent, hosting soccer clinics, and serving the locals.
Like when I decided to give my life to Christ that night, a lot of blessings started coming to my life.
For the glory of God, a lot of them are already working and serving for the ministry.
From the makeshift fields in Manantiales to grand stadiums of the city, Costa Col isn't just about a game. It's forging a future. Here, faith and soccer serve as powerful allies, proving that together, they can transform lives and rebuild communities.
This is a testimony of God's grace and mercy. God is actively working to redeem this world. And if there's an example of that, it's Costa Col and Medellin.
Now that a new season's upon us, it's clear that the true victors aren't just here on the soccer fields, but it's found in the hearts of those who've fallen in love with the transforming love and grace of Jesus Christ. Reporting in Baggio, Colombia, Brody Carter, CBN News.
Still ahead, CY1 couple says living in a minimalistic lifestyle saved their marriage. Stay with us. You're watching CBN NewsWatch. Welcome back to CBN NewsWatch. The roots of minimalism go back 2,500 years to ancient Roman Greece. But in recent years, it's gained popularity as people seek financial freedom, reducing stress, and ridding themselves of worldly possessions that weigh them down. Eric and Sylvia Hawkins of Cape Charles, Virginia, have been married for 34 years. They say living a minimalistic lifestyle has literally saved their marriage, and they're sharing their story.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to dive into why, first of all, you guys chose this tiny living minimalistic lifestyle. Eric, what was the motivation?
I was tired of being tired. Here it is, we're living in a 3,000 square foot home. My wife and I had it custom built for us 3 months after we got married. Yes. And it had it constructed. And this is fast forward almost 20 years. I wasn't enjoying the life that I built. Here it is, my wife's a hair salon owner. I'm a heating and air conditioning contractor. And we built this life that looks good on the outside, but when we came home, home was a place to rest. It wasn't a place that we enjoyed so much. We loved our house, we were blessed to have it. But my connection with my children, my connection with my wife, my connection with myself was being lost in this whole process. And I didn't really realize it at first. Wow. I didn't realize that, you know, I wasn't enjoying, it looked like everything that we achieved looked like everything that we wanted, but when we got it, we didn't realize, is this really what we wanted?
Wow. So I know, Sylvia, you guys both say that living this way has literally saved your marriage.
Yes.
Can you talk about that for a second?
Well, like he said, we were so busy doing his job and me doing my job. It was like he said, it was two ships in the night, and we never really had time for each other. So he grabbed me one day when he was taking time out with my son, and he said, look, son, how about I go and get your mom, and you stay here, and me and her are gonna go out. And we spent time in an RV that they had. And he said, I want to spend time with my wife. Oh. And that's how we ended up. Beautiful. And we sat there and it was like so much peace and no fussing. Well, we wasn't a fusser because we didn't really see each other.
You're so busy working.
So we just sat there and just enjoyed each other's company. Wow. And we was like, hey, we could do this.
You tapped into something real, something positive. Tell me about the day that you guys were on vacation. You made a wrong turn, and it turned out to be a right turn. You stumbled on this old property. What happened?
Well, in the things that we've done in our lives, we had these goals and things that we've set. So we had fast forwarded into living tiny at that stage in the game, and we had this goal, still had this goal to own a tiny house village.
Wow.
But instead of using vision boards like most people do, we had sort of developed this one image method where we have one image that we see our dream in. So we see our entire dream in this one image, and you keep this image with you. Where vision boards exist on your wall at home, and you disconnect when you're on the road. It's on your kitchen wall, but as soon as you leave, you disconnect. And it can't affect your decisions that you're out in the world doing.
Right.
So we have this one image, and we kept it everywhere, on our phones, in our visor, you know,
the refrigerator.
Our refrigerator, everywhere we went. Wow. And this image stayed with us. So instead of turning left into Cape Charles, we turned right because we love
going
exploring.
to Cape Charles,
And as we got to this property, we saw to the left. Sylvia's the one that saw it first, not me. She looks to the left. These homes had been abandoned for 50+ years. Wow. And it was overgrown. It was overgrown so much, there were a couple houses we couldn't even see. Matter of fact, one house in particular, we didn't know was there until after we closed on the property.
Wow.
That's how bad it was overgrown. But when we saw it, immediately Sylvia said, "This is it." And I'm like, what on earth are you seeing? She pulled the visor down, pulled the image out, and she says, "This is it." And immediately, all the trees, all the rot, all the bad melted away. We only saw that image.
And you can hear more from Eric and Sylvia Hawkins and get more spiritually uplifting information on this week's episode of The Prayer Link. It's on the CBN News Channel Wednesday at 2:30 Eastern. You can also catch it on the CBN News app, or you can watch it on YouTube. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Time for your Tuesday Tweetable. Consider this: there is victory in Jesus. There is no failure. Put your life in his hand and you can't fail. He won't fail, so you won't fail. And that will do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can always find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel. You can find them there at any time, as well as online, cbnnews.com. Let us know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can email us, newswatch@cbn.com. Hope you'll join us again right back here, same time tomorrow. Goodbye and God bless.